As a mortal man, I used to love the ocean, the waves, the sea. When I was but a child, my father built us a boat. A small little thing, really, barely large enough for the whole family, but it did fit us all. He would take me out traveling and trading across the lands, and as I grew older, we stopped such excursions, and that boat was used more for transport, to war, than fun of any kind. But I never stopped gazing out into the sea, wondering what could be out there. I still believed in sea monsters back then, and in many ways, I was right. For monsters are out there in these waters, just not in the form I was expecting. Today, I wish to speak of a group of kindred that care not for the land, but have their vision set out to sea. An aquatic branch of Clan Gangrel that call themselves the Mariners, although others have dubbed them the Acurai. This name was given to them by the Tremere, but they utterly despise this name, and so I shall continue to call them Mariners for this discussion. They're actually not too dissimilar to the regular Gangrel, but there are enough differences to find them fascinating. For a start, they have more affiliation with the sea than the land, obviously, meaning that instead of taking on a more common animal aspect like, say, a wolf or a bear or something, they take on more sea life like sharks or a barracuda or a squid or something else stupid like that. And like regular Gangrel, they may take on these animal aspects in their personality as well. Or they might not. I tend that the Gangrel vary in this aspect quite drastically. But if we are talking physiology, then that's the only thing that sets them apart, as they are technically not a bloodline unto themselves. Any normal Gangrel can have a Mariner child, and any Mariner can have a normal child. For this reason, they are more like a faction than a bloodline, but many treat them as a bloodline due to their, shall I say, cultural differences, akin to the old clan Zamitsi. See, Mariners spend all of their time underwater, and I do mean all of their time. When a Mariner comes to the surface, there is probably a big reason behind it, often for the like of a kindred war, or to pay a debt to someone that they owe their life, or perhaps just to create a new childer. Because of this long time underwater, their bodies might actually reflect this, not just in the normal human ways we change to adapt to water, but more extreme ones. Remember, Gangrels are masters of shapeshifting, and take on many forms to reflect this. I've heard all sorts of tales of them gaining fish-like bodies and heads, long clawed talons, and glowing head stalks, something like an anglerfish has. Really, they could look like something straight out of a Lovecraftian horror. Because of how different they look, you might be forgiven in not knowing that they were kindred at all, which, added to the fact that you'd learn they spend more time with other aquatic creatures, and I would imagine other supernatural ones as well, you could be forgiven for forgetting they are at all. They have no desire to work with or for any faction, and in truth, no faction wants a part of them. I mean, I'm not going into the ocean to recruit one fish person to do God only knows what. But if you do go near them for whatever reason, they might just attack you on sight. For they spend so long of these time periods on their own at sea, they might just act like animals. Well, many Gangrel are known to do this just every now and again, and for nowhere near as long. But it's weirder for the Mariners, since there's no human life anywhere near them, and they're going to be alone for so much longer than what's considered normal. When you combine this with their drastically small numbers, as well as anything that will be in close distance to them, it can be a really lonely existence. But their numbers are pathetic, really. Not even enough to be considered a real group were it not for people fascinated with their weird uniqueness and their bizarre lifestyle, with some thinking they numbered around 30. I would say they number just below 100, at least I imagine so, but I would be shocked to learn that they are in the triple digits. And if they are, they have only just entered them. It is because of these low numbers and lack of communications with really anything, they view themselves as individuals, and not a group as a whole. There is close to no kinship between them. When they do interact with each other, it is often brief and little in any form of groups or allegiances form, with some small and not really noteworthy exceptions. Now, while it is considered the default for them to dwell in the ocean, some are known to claim other bodies of water, such as small seas, large lakes, and any river large enough for them to hide within it. When this does happen, rare as it is, they tend to be drastically more territorial, making sure all things know to stay away from the monster that lives in the lake. And I'm sure you can already see how this has formed many a myth. They're also helped drastically in this by their unique look. As I said before, they can change themselves drastically to adapt to their more moist climates. But because of the fact that all they are doing is using their regular power of protean, these changes are actually not permanent. It's just, well, why would they change back? For normal gangrels, they will have to interact with people again, so they drop these powers as to fit in, or at least not to threaten those around them. But a man whose only interaction is going to be with, well, fish, and maybe a mermaid if those are even real, why would he change back? Indeed, some have been changed for so long that they have forgotten what they were like before, and they have become a bit more skilled by extension, more powerful in a specialized manner. It's even said, for example, that some have learned to have sonar-like abilities just by changing their own bodies. They have webbed hands and feet, as well as having tentacles and bioluminescence and other weird, bizarre things that disgusting deep-sea life have. Ugh. But all of these things can indeed be taught to another non-mariner gangrel, or really anyone with the protean discipline. But since it would take a lot of time to learn these things, and it's probably only useful underwater, most just don't bother. With that being said, however, good luck trying to get one of them to teach you, or for them to do anything for that matter. I can count the amount of times one of them has been relevant in my incredibly long life on one hand. And even then, I didn't care about them at the time anyway. The mariners serve as one of those perfect curiosities that, while fascinating from a distance, once you get up close, the magic seems to fade, and they become a lot more boring. But now is usually the part I talk about their disciplines and powers, but since they all have the same disciplines as the main branch, and I have already talked about their different manifestations of their powers, of which is already a small list, I think I should just get right into the story I have of one. For yes, I do have a story of an interaction I had with them. Well, I didn't interact with them, but I funded a group to do so for me, because, ocean. See, I have had to deal with a mariner before, just not directly. I have many kindred that work under me, and one of them is the child of a mariner. Their sire needed to be killed. I'm not sure of the exact details as to why, but it was something akin to a blood curse, and if the sire was not killed soon, then the childer would meet their final death, or something to that effect. And since they were quite the useful lackey, I paid for them to use one of my ghoul task forces. Of course, I had to buy all new gear for them to explore the depths. I'll spare you the full list of details of what happened to them on that encounter, but I will tell you of what their sire actually looked like. For indeed, all the time they had spent down there had changed them into a monster most foul. See, they were always quite the large man, if you could still call them that, but they seem to have grown drastically after they turned feral and became a white. Their skin had turned a dark green, and their body became more bloated. They had even developed a head like that of an anglerfish. His legs had bonus protrusions that almost resembled tendrils to help them swim. And it should go without saying that they were much faster and stronger than any team I could have sent out. Not to mention that they were a master of fortitude. I sent one gangrel, a Territorial, and 12 ghouls down to deal with the monster. And only the Gangrel and 3 ghouls returned. But the job was done. In the end, the cost was absolutely not worth it, and I should have let the Gangrel die. The sadder part is that mongrel actually ended up betraying me in the end. After I drove them off, they too slowly turned feral and became a white. And when I hunted them down, they were hiding in the waters of a swamp. So maybe their sire did have an impact on them after all. It's hard to say much more on the mariners than that, in truth. They would rather be left alone, like all gangrel really. The only oddity that sets them apart is their locations and how they go about doing it. not to mention their strange physical traits, but still there's something weirdly compelling about them, despite their complete irrelevancy. And who knows, perhaps they've figured out something that we haven't. After all, there is an allure to the sea, despite its terrifying nature. And of course, there's much more of it that we have yet to explore than what we have. Perhaps there are powers down there, far beyond our comprehension. Or maybe there's just a lot of ugly fish. My money's on the latter. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveller, have a good day.